Hey guys, T here. Today we're going to be comparing commander build on the King George V here. Here's my new build that I tested today. Charles Madden, level 11, Cunningham, you'll see in a sec. Jellicoe, level 8, very low level. And then you can see the perks on the side of the screen here to the right. Here's my Cunningham build. This is the one I've been traditionally using. Very strong build. Very comfortable with that for all British battleships. Which is why I went ahead and maxed that one, along with the fact that I like to use Cunningham as an inspiration on pretty much all battleships. But Madden, I've had my eye on for a long time. He was actually the last commander I unlocked out of all of them, once they changed the commander acquisition rules. Finally got him, and someone asked me the other day, does commander build really make that much difference? Because I do talk about it a lot. So here we have kind of a mid-level Madden, and I'll compare it to what my high-level Cunningham would be on this ship. So for my Madden build, I got 5.4 second longer damage con reload. The damage con cycler on Cunningham is in the 4th slot perk. It actually affects the damage con positively, much more than Madden's, which is in the 3rd perk slot. There's different perks. Now the Madden does reduce the fire chance as well, which is nice. Madden, you get 455 more HP per heal and 5 seconds shorter reload between the heals. Now that could get enhanced quite a bit, boosting that 4th level perk for Madden, which eventually would add a 5th heal and more HP per heal, as well as Jellicoe. And that, if you recall, I had a level 8 Jellicoe on the Madden build, which isn't a very high level commander inspiration for that. So that's just kind of something I was playing around with the eye on kind of long-term boosting Jellicoe. But significant there. So you get just shy of 2k more per game with the 4 heals. And if you added the 5th, it'd be 2.5, and then adding on to that by enhancing the HP, you'd probably get about 3-4k more HP per game, assuming you're using all those heals properly, which is that's a fair amount of health. 2.9 kilometers shorter main gun range on this Madden build, which is a dramatic difference. The Cunningham build, I have a comfortable gap, to operate in terms of detectability of the ship. Madden, you can see here when the detectability ring drops back, it's just shy of the max firing range on this. So quite a bit of difference in terms of how far you can reach out and strike with these more brawly, durable builds compared to the long-range accuracy battleship builds. 3 second faster reload on this build, though, and again, we're comparing kind of a upper mid-level Madden to a very high level Cunningham on that. So that would be enhanced further, I believe. 3.1 second longer turret traverse, which is kind of interesting because Madden is known for his turret traverse, but of course we do get a couple levels more of a boost, or a reduction actually, to the turret traverse time on the Cunningham build, and 1,391 less max AP damage on these, comparing these two builds for Madden, and that's basically Citadel hits. I believe that scales down with other hits, AP penetrating hits, but that's a significant amount of damage. If you get 5 Citadel hits, for instance, you're talking about 7k roughly, difference in damage. 2.8 knots faster in the water on this Madden build. Some of those accuracy builds kind of cut down on the speed. And finally, 1.5 seconds shorter rudder shift on the Madden build. So quite a bit of difference here. And that's just, these two specific builds. Obviously, you can tailor those as you fiddle around with them. So to answer the question, yes, the commander builds do matter quite a bit. Now getting into this game here, the Queen Elizabeth's being really aggressive. I'm getting pretty pissed off at this Charlemagne over there. I thought he didn't need to be where he was. If the Queen Elizabeth was going to be aggressive like that, pushing forward, we had access to that broadside. And you can see we were firing the AP shells here. King George, I really like this ship. This is one of the few battleships that I really actively switch the shells back and forth. Here you do have the short fuse AP characteristics of the majority of the British battleships. Not all of them have that, but this one does. And then you have the outstanding HE shells in terms of damage and fire chance. So it kind of behooves you to play the ship if you want to play it, kind of at its max potential. Be switching those shells according to the situation. Now the quicker reload with the Madden builds obviously helps that quite a bit. So I think Madden's a pretty strong choice for this King George. Haven't played him a few times here. Here we're pulling forward here, we do get spotted. And as we pull forward, we note that the Jervis is close range to us. What do destroyers not want to rush? The King George V is the ultimate ship you do not want to rush. Shots away, and he... GONE! Devastating strike. One shot from full health to 0 health from a battleship. And, I'd probably rank Atlanta and King George maybe tied for first. Maybe a little bit of a nod to the Atlanta just because it combines the radar. But neither ship is something that a destroyer wants to rush. Now he does get a little bit of a revenge on me there with some pretty tightly grouped torps that I'm really not able to do a whole lot of dodging away from. But nevertheless, it did cost him his life. And, in these situations where, that was the last destroyer. They took out our destroyers previously. If we can take out theirs, that kind of takes away a distinct advantage. And it brought us within one ship here. You saw we had quite a bit of a hole in terms of ships early on. And, of course, we're having a bit of a problem with the capture points as well. So this game isn't going that great so far. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with what we did on our side. We're forced to pull away from there, though, without capturing it. Yeah, but I do kind of at this point in the game feel like I need to kind of support the rest of my team here and try and affect that part of the outcome, because if they slaughter my team over here, it's just not going to matter if I spend my time capturing that point or not. Log up pulling through here, switch to AP, short fuse. British battleships that have the short fuse can be problematic for the French cruisers, as that guy who's also he-gowned found out. So these British battleships, the shell characteristics are very interesting, very unique, and you kind of have to really know how they work to play them at their full potential there. For the New Mexico, for instance, perhaps I can pen this lower, armor plating that's right above the water. Very hard to citadel these heavily armored battleships, though, that have multiple layers of armor to go through, because the shells will... The fuses will arm prematurely or earlier than your regular AP shell and detonate before they actually hit that citadel chamber. So for these, heavily armored American battleships that are heavily armored on the side, the waterline, that's when we kind of want to aim up into the upper area of the ship there. Or you could potentially just switch over to HE as well against that heavily armored ship. But you can see with this Madden build, and again, there's some room to improve this Madden build, but quite a nice cycle through the gun reload. Nice cycle through the health, the repair party, the damage con. Not quite as good as the Cunningham, as we noted earlier, but max level Cunningham, I mean, you're going to get a nice cycle through the damage con on that one. So getting back to the commander build for just a sec, keep in mind when you're designing these that the commander perks, the slots on the right-hand side of the commander screen that have usually 2 or 3 different options, those have higher percentage increases or decreases on whatever they're affecting. In other words, they're stronger influences on that build than the base trait of that particular commander or the base traits of the commanders that are inspiring your build. And just as a note, people ask me a lot if the inspirations, those commanders, if their entire build influences your ship or just that base trait of that commander. The answer is just the base trait. So if you're going to keep that in mind when you're allocating your promotion orders, insignias, stuff like that, if you're trying to increase something or design a build for a given line, putting the points into the actual commander that are going to be piloting the ship is going to be more beneficial than, fiddling with the inspirations. Although those do help, to some extent as well. So, getting back to this game here, you can see obviously it's not going well. I guess momentarily it's 3-3, but positionally, they're in a little bit better of a spot, and they have 2 caps to our 1, and they're up by points. So, we're going to have to try and finish them off here. Now, the King George, getting that back turret involved requires swinging the ship wide open. So if you're getting into kind of a standoffish situation like I am with this Warship, but a lot of times it's just going to be better to point the front 2 guns at it. I'm a little bit more steeply angled there than I need to be. I guess I'm trying to get that back and involved right as it goes around the island there to get a little bit extra damage. But if I was going to be in a protracted, kind of drawn-out fight with that guy, just keeping the front 2 guns on him would be better, because the front and the back end of these British battleships tend to be pretty well armored, whereas it's kind of more evenly armored in the sides. And so that means you can, comparing it to like an American battleship, which is lightly armored in the front but heavily armored at the sides, this one you can kind of point more at the enemy and survive for longer. But him going beyond there, and then having these 2 targets over here anyways, we're going to turn around here, but we do end up bleeding that Queen Elizabeth to death via fire, which is nice. But the problem I'm running into here is what's going on with the team. Now I'll just kind of lay it. You'll see this Fuso as he drives by. He has roughly half the health, or half of his ship's health. I, on the other hand, I'm getting low health, and this is my last repair party here. So I need him to stay in the fight and support me, and then I think we have a pretty good shot at winning this. I'm going to turn away here. You can get, it seems to me anyways, you get slightly better angles firing rearward from the ship than you do forward. But I do want to not necessarily close in on these guys either. The York does have the torp threat. But the Fuso, I'm just going to lay it out so I don't have to harp on it as we go through this. But he decides he's going to go into sea, capture the base, and then in his mind he's going to get around them and flank them and shoot them. Players do this all the time. A lot of it probably just stems from inexperience, but they underestimate, and often dramatically underestimate, the time it's going to take to sail around the island. So you can note the clock when you can see it. There's not a lot of time left. We're not going to win on score. By the time it takes a minute or however long to flip that cap and then to begin accruing the points, it's just not going to happen. The only path to victory is to kill these ships. And that's another thing that comes with experience, recognizing the wind conditions that are present and available for you and then pursuing them. But by going through this island to get to the cap, he's removing himself so he cannot even support me and shoot at these targets. And by the time they kill me and he does whatever, the game's going to end. So, unfortunately, a bit of a mistake here on his part. But, like I said, it is what it is. But anytime you recognize that you, as a player, make this mistake, or if you're watching your teammates or whatever and you identify it, that little bit of learning from the recognition goes a long way. That's the more you can identify what went wrong, that's how you're going to improve, and so that's why I don't necessarily get mad at this player. I'm just hoping he doesn't have the experience to recognize the fatal mistake that he made here, but it ends up costing us the game. But you can see we do have a pretty respectable 150k damage on this thing. I thought it was a pretty decent game, and I thought it was an interesting game to kind of go over the differences between the builds. So I think at the end of the day, how you want to play the ship depends on the ship itself and less on the build. But the build can enhance the way that you're supposed to play the ship, or it can alter it somewhat, depending on the exact nature of the build. So anyway, hopefully you guys did enjoy that one. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. There's a lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions for me, comments, leave them below. Love to hear from you guys. And we'll see y'all later. Alright, peace.